As I was researching for this episode, I discovered the phrase hurry sickness, which I had honestly never heard of before. But once I read it, I realized it was all too familiar. Hurry sickness is, quote, characterized by chronic rushing and anxiousness and an overwhelming persistent sense of urgency, even when there's no need to be moving so fast, unquote. If you're somebody who is high achieving with a type A personality, you might be able to relate to this. The problem with hurry sickness is that it can result in chronic stress, anxiety, irritability, and negative impacts to your work and relationships. In this episode, we'll dive more into hurry sickness and how you can cope when everything feels urgent. This is episode number 135, What to Do When Everything Feels Urgent, Coping with Hurry Sickness. Welcome to Calmly Coping. My name is Tati Garcia, and I'm a licensed therapist and coach specializing in high-functioning anxiety. I help high achievers overcome anxiety, stress, and overwhelm so they can finally stop overthinking everything and feel calm, balanced, and confident from within. Thank you so much for tuning in. So back in 2020, when I first started my second business where I offer online courses and coaching, so my first business is my therapy practice that is local to New Jersey, I clung to this one affirmation. My life is not a race. I do things at my own pace. So I needed this constant reminder because I so often felt myself wanting to do all the things all the time. I felt myself overloading my schedule and tasks and constantly jumping from one thing to the next because it never felt like I was doing enough. And above all, everything felt urgent. When I learned something new I could be doing or immediately felt like I should be doing, it felt like it was already too late and I had to implement this ASAP. Otherwise, something bad was going to happen. It wasn't soon enough. I would be missing out, etc., etc. So for me, this hurry sickness really applied to work, but I've also found that it can apply to learning new skills and revisiting old ones for me as well. Like I just recently started learning jazz piano after having been classically trained for most of my life. And so this is definitely a new transition, but I find myself feeling that I already need to be great right now. I find myself judging myself and feeling like, well, I should already be better. And it feels like this race and like it's urgent. One thing is that I have learned to recognize those ways of thinking and those urges so that I don't actually cling on to them and believe them. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today is really what you can do if you resonate with this hurry sickness and this sense of urgency, if this is something that's showing up for you and how you can stop it from making you feel like crap and from creating more anxiety and from just making you feel like everything is a rush. So I do want to give credit. This term was coined by cardiologist Meyer Friedman and Ray Rosenman. Some people might have hurry sickness bleed into their entire lives. It could be the sense that everything is urgent, even if it's not. And I think this really applies to people who have high functioning anxiety because when you have high functioning anxiety, you tend to put high expectations on yourself and put a lot of pressure on yourself, which then creates more stress and anxiety. And so this pressure can be related to urgency. You know, there may be pressure for certain reasons. So maybe it's related to perfectionism. Everything needs to be done perfectly or the best, but it could also be this pressure to do things the most efficiently or the most quickly or to have it done or to always be ahead. And that can create a lot of extra stress and anxiety. You might appear to be doing well on the outside, but then on the inside, you're struggling with this inner turmoil and overthinking. If you resonate as struggling with high functioning anxiety, I have a free training that is pre-recorded all about how to help you overcome high functioning anxiety so that you can stop overthinking everything and feel calm, balanced, and more confident from within. You can take this free training by going to calmlycoping.com/workshop. So now I want to share some signs that you might be struggling with hurry sickness. And by the way, this is not a diagnosable condition. This is just a behavior pattern that you might notice in yourself. So first is restlessness. So this can be difficulty relaxing, feeling like you always need to be busy, which is something that is so common that I hear from those struggling with high functioning anxiety. It could be feeling like everything is a race or everything has to be rushed. It could be irritability when things are delayed or when they don't go according to the plan that you had. It could also be feeling like you're constantly behind and like you never have enough time for the things that you want to do. Another sign is an obsession with completing the tasks on your to-do list. And another sign could be be multitasking in order to get those things done. So now that you know some signs of hurry sickness or this constant feeling of urgency, what are the consequences that can occur as a result of this hurry sickness? So there are many negative consequences that can result. And this could be chronic stress, which can make it difficult to relax, get adequate rest, and recover from the stress of day-to-day life. It could be burnout in the long term. If you're constantly rushing and doing more and adding more to your plate and always putting all this pressure on yourself, you may eventually reach a point of burnout where you just feel as though you have nothing left to give. And I have a whole episode on how high functioning anxiety can lead to burnout. So I'm going to link that if you want to check out more about that. It could be increased anxiety from worrying about not getting things done on time, from worrying about having too many things to do. And there can also be many health problems that occur as a result of chronic stress. So it could be increased inflammation in the body, which makes it more likely that you're going to have a lowered immune system, and you could have chronic long-term health problems such as heart disease, gastrointestinal problems, or other things that occur as a result of that chronic stress. And there could also be negative impacts to your relationships. Let's say if you feel as though you constantly need to rush, and this may result in conflict or other issues in your relationships, whether personally or at work. And you could also have decreased focus at work and energy to complete your tasks. And this is because instead of being focused on what you're doing, you're probably focused more on, I need to get this done quickly, and that's going to take you out of the moment and out of focusing on what you're doing and into stress and anxiety. If you struggle with this hurry sickness and constant feeling of urgency, then what can you do about it? So I'm going to give you a few suggestions for what I think you can do. So the first one might be obvious, but it's learning how to slow down. Okay. Now, this can be tough, especially if you're used to constantly rushing and feeling like your life is essentially a race and you need to do everything quickly. You can practice slowing down gradually and doing it with things that feel easier to do it. So maybe things that aren't as high risk or things where you're not as afraid of the consequences. So this could just be in your day-to-day life, practicing taking your morning routine more slowly and gradually. Maybe it is giving yourself more time than you think you need for things and allowing yourself to actually take that time. Not having the expectation of, oh, I'll get it done quickly and then I'll have time to relax. Because let's get real, that time to relax never comes because you're just going to be filling it in with something else. Do whatever you can to try and avoid that feeling of rushing as much as you can and allow yourself to take things slowly when possible. My next tip is to assess how urgent something really is, because sometimes fear and anxiety can make things feel urgent, and that's because you're worried about, well, if I don't do this, what bad thing might happen. And that's when it can really help to reflect on, is this really urgent, or does it just feel like it's urgent? Am I just worried about what might happen if I don't get this done soon? And maybe it's really not urgent and you're just adding more stress and pressure to yourself. So with certain things like where there's clear deadlines, then that can be easy to assess the urgency of something. You know, how soon does this need to be done by? For example, is it really the end of the world if you're 15 minutes late to your niece's birthday party? You know, maybe you might prefer not to be, but it's not the end of the world. And, you know, is it an emergency to get that work project done 1 week before the deadline so then you can have time to focus on other things, or like I mentioned before, have time to relax afterwards? No, you don't need to necessarily get things done super early. And are you just adding more stress to yourself by having the expectation of, I need to get things done early because I don't want to be procrastinating, because I don't want to be stressing about it, because I want to have time to relax, when really, are you actually getting the benefit of those things, or are you just creating more stress and pressure for yourself up front? So looking at what are the actual consequences of doing this rather than just what are the benefits of getting this thing done early. So take a step back and ask yourself, is this thing really urgent? My next tip is to take time for rest and quiet. Even if this is taking a few deep breaths between tasks, actually taking a lunch break, assessing where you can create more space or time for yourself, regardless of how little it is, can really be helpful to help you avoid burnout and chronic stress, especially the burnout and chronic stress that can come as a result of constantly rushing through things. Another tip is to shorten your to-do list. I can guarantee you it's probably too long. Okay. And when you have a long to-do list, then there can be this inherent pressure. I need to get everything done on my list, or you beat yourself up and feel crappy when you don't get everything done. So shorten the list. You can make a list that is things that are super important that you must get done, and maybe an additional list that are things that might be nice to do's. Or, I really love using the app Todoist. I use it literally every single day. It is amazing. And I love it because you can schedule out which day you're wanting to plan a task. So let's say you need to do it, but it's not today. You can say Friday, do this task. And then it's not going to show up on your list for today. So you're not going to feel pressured or stressed that you must do it, but you can have the peace of mind of knowing that it's there waiting for you when you do need it and when you can address the thing. And honestly, I love Todoist. So if this is something that you're interested in trying out, I have partnered with them, honestly, just because I truly love them so much. I really don't do partnerships with like affiliate programs very often, but I have done so with Todoist because it is something that I genuinely use every single day and has changed my life. If you're interested in checking it out, then you can go to calmlycoping.com/Todoist. That's ToDoist to try it out for yourself. But that is another tip that I think can be really helpful, shortening out your to-do list and making it so that you're only focusing today on the things that are important for today. My next tip is to stop multitasking. Multitasking does not exist. That's because when you're multitasking, you're actually constantly task switching from one thing to the next. So multitasking is actually going to make it so that it takes you longer to get things done. And especially if you're somebody who's focusing on rushing and urgency, I can guarantee that's the opposite of what you want. So I want you to practice focusing on one task at a time. And it's really okay to do one thing at a time. It's okay to slow down and just focus on one thing. And that's going to actually create less stress because you're not really switching from one thing to the next and feeling like this all needs to get done now, but you can really take your time. And maybe if you find that setting a timer for yourself will be helpful to help you to get things done, or whatever it is that helps you do focused work, focusing on one task at a time can be really helpful. And my next tip is to use a mantra, like the one that I mentioned in the beginning of this episode. It was, my life is not a race. I do things at my own pace. So identifying maybe you like that one and you want to stick with it, or is there something else that can be a mantra or a reminder for yourself to remind yourself throughout your day, okay, it's time to slow down. My life isn't a race. I don't need to constantly rush through things. And just having that mental reminder and that verbal reminder within your mind, or if you're saying it out loud, however you choose to, can really help you to refocus and check in with what you may be doing on autopilot that has just become an unconscious habit, and reassessing, okay, is this a direction I want to keep moving forward in? And this is going to allow you to feel more fully present in your experience, think more clearly, and worry about things less. You could even put a Post-it note on your desk with that mantra or that reminder to help to keep you reminded throughout the day. So I want to hear, what do you think of these tips, and do you resonate as struggling with hurry sickness? Join us in our free Facebook community for high achievers with high functioning anxiety, Calmly Coping, by going to calmlycoping.com/group and sharing your thoughts there. Next week's podcast episode, I'm actually going to be going live in the Facebook group. For that episode, I'm going to be going live the Tuesday before it typically comes out Wednesday. So it's still going to come out wherever you listen to this podcast on that Wednesday, but I'm just going to be choosing to go live ahead of time with the episode. And so this will allow for more interaction. You can ask me your questions, you can show up and watch it live. So be sure to tune in. It's going to be happening on January 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And again, you can join us by going to calmlycoping.com/group. While you wait for next week's episode, I have other episodes about decreasing anxiety, adopting a healthy mindset, and managing your time and energy. So be sure to check out these episodes here. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, be calm.